I matched with this girl on Tinder. Her name was Jenna. Or at least that's what her profile read. Jenna and I went on our first date on January 26th. She knew that I was just out of a long-term relationship and that I still maintained occasional contact with my ex-girlfriend, Mary. Jenna and I officially start calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend around the middle of February. 3 days ago I was taking a shower when Jenna started going through my phone without permission. She digs through everything and reads old messages between Mary and I. There were a few casual ones and a few very affectionate ones from way before Jenna and I started seeing each other or even met. Jenna packs all of her things and is heading out of the door when I get out of the shower, with my phone in her hand. She starts texting a bunch of people saying bad things about me. Then, she hacks into my Facebook and makes a post calling Mary a whole slew of names. She then blocks and unfriends several of my friends. She does a similar thing with Twitter. I get a hold of a coworker's phone and use it to try to contact her and to sign back into my Facebook. Once she realizes I did this, she changed all of my passwords and my email passwords as well. Eventually she tells me she wants to talk this out and to meet at my place. I play along so I can try to get my phone and passwords back. She gives me my phone and makes me call Mary and to tell her I'm cutting her out of my life. I was able to contact Mary earlier and warned her that something like this might happen. We both have a background in theater, so we had a very convincing argument over speakerphone so that Jenna can hear. Jenna finally gives me my passwords and I immediately change them. I tell her that she should leave and she doesn't understand why I want her out of my life. She goes home very upset about me breaking up with her over this. Jenna starts posting and commenting on my Facebook and I block her. I blocked her on everything and she begins calling me over and over, not even saying anything when I try to pick up the phone. I block her number. Then, I start receiving the same calls over and over from a Colorado number. I eventually gave up and went to my phone provider and changed my number. I also changed the locks on my door in case she took a key. The very next day, she makes a Facebook page calling Mary and I names and she hacks into my Twitter account. I tell her if she calls me one more time, or posts one more thing about anyone I know, that I'm going to call the police. I get an email saying that my application for a credit card, with the bank I do not use, has been approved. I call the bank and tell them what's happening and they put a freeze on the account. Several friends have told me to call the police and I finally realize enough is enough. The police come and tell me that she has some sort of file with them and that her name isn't even Jenna. It's something completely different. They issue a warning of harassment and if she tries to contact me again I call the police and she gets arrested. On Monday I have to call the fraud people and get all my accounts frozen and investigated and stuff. I realize this is a lot, but this is actually a pretty bare bones version of this story. Basically the reason I'm posting this is now that the police got involved and I've had my locks changed and my number changed and all is solved, I'm starting to feel the emotional damage of being abused and harassed by someone I was really starting to care about, and I don't know how to deal with it. Someone on the other post accused me of making this all up, so I proved them with these screenshots of the Facebook page she made of me and the phone numbers she was calling me from that I have now blocked. I'm an aspiring comedian, so that's why the page calls me one. If you want some other form of proof, feel free to ask me. I know it sounds crazy, but that's because it is.
The second story is coming up next.
This story is about my dad's ex-girlfriend. My dad has had horrible luck with women. He is like a crazy magnet. Every woman he has ever dated, except for his current girlfriend, have been abusive both mentally and physically. This list includes my mother. But this story is about his last girlfriend named Megan. She has gone from stalking not only him but also me, my husband and our daughter as well. They met at a Christmas party and hit it off. He had just gotten out of another bad relationship with a different woman that he had been on and off with for 3 years. She was the classic narcissist type. Megan seemed different. She claimed she was also just out of an abusive relationship. They went out for a few months but she never let my dad over to her place. He didn't find it all that weird until he received a call from a man who said that Megan was his wife and wanted to know how my dad knew her. At first Dad thought the guy was just her ex still trying to control her. But things started to add up. He finally confronted Megan and she gave him some sob story about how her ex was refusing to sign the papers but that they were officially separated. He did a bit of digging and even talked to Megan's parents at one point. He found out that not only was Megan definitely still married, but she wasn't even separated from her husband. As far as everyone in her life knew, she was happily married and my dad was just a friend, if they even knew about him at all. Needless to say, he broke up with her. She lost it. She started showing up at his work and calling in the middle of the night as well as texting him 50 or more times per day. All that good stuff. My dad moved states twice and changed his number several times to try and get away from her, but somehow she always found him. Love letters would arrive in the mail or she would call and say she was coming to see him. Then she found my phone number. Probably sometime after my dad moved in with me. She started texting me almost as much as him. Once I married my husband and had my daughter, she really went all out. She started sending me presents for her new granddaughter. Always wanting updates from me. I never replied and I either sent back unopened packages or donated the items that she had sent directly to me. Everything finally came to boiling point when she arrived on my dad's doorstep while he was at work, with a casserole for him. She gave it to his roommate and told him it was because she noticed my dad was losing weight. He told his roommate to toss it. He didn't want to risk poison since he had just applied for a restraining order. Then, some night she showed up at my apartment while my husband worked the overnight shift. It was after 1 in the morning when she started knocking on my door. I was glad that I had sent my toddler to my aunt and uncle's for the night when I saw it was her. She left banana bread on my doorstep that we threw out as soon as my husband got home. The next night I again left my toddler with my aunt and uncle in case she came back. She did. I started getting texts from her as she pounded on my door. She wanted to see her grandbaby and have some girl time with me. They slowly devolved into demands for me to open up the door. I called the cops. While I was on the phone with dispatch, my neighbor came out ready to take her on. He told her cops were on the way since his wife was already calling them. She disappeared pretty quick into the park across the street. The cops didn't catch her, but my dad's restraining order did get granted. We have since moved across the state, but she still texts me from time to time wanting to know how my dad is or what my daughter is up to. I never answer, but I do save all her texts just in case I have to get my own restraining order as well.
The third story is next.
Just over 1 year ago, I was still in contact with my ex-girlfriend. I had just recently moved out of her house and back to my hometown, which was a considerable distance away from her. This story is just a fraction of the bad experiences that I had with her. I'm not sure why I chose to stay with her for so long and decided to ignore so many red flags. She would call me a lot at night time. Most of the conversations we had were just her complaining about my behavior and calling me a horrible person. If I ever asked her why we were still talking, she would just get angrier with me. There was a part of me at this time that was still trauma bonded, attached, and wanted to get back with her. She was extremely beautiful, but there were aspects of her personality that concealed something very sinister. She had a side to her that was very cold, menacing, and cunning. She was a professional gaslighter and knew every trick in the book to twist events and situations into making her look like the victim. She would never admit fault to any of her actions. One night during one of our conversations, I convinced her that we needed to meet in person to talk things over. In my mind, I knew that I was just wanting to test her true interest by seeing her physically. When the conversation went in this direction, she said, "I still care about you, Joshua. I still love you." This was the first time that she had said anything nice to me in a long time. I was a little bit thrown off by this, but I decided to ignore it. We made plans to meet up, so I bought a rental car and took some time off from work to go and visit her. I made arrangements at a hotel and we were going to meet later that night in a public place. For privacy purposes, I won't mention the exact location, but it is a popular theme park that she goes to often. We agreed to meet near a specific place in the theme park near an area where food is served. Before I had left on the trip, I switched my cell phone to a new burner phone that didn't have anything on it. I did this because Alice had stolen my old phone and used it to delete my photos, read old text messages, and change my passwords on my old emails and social media accounts, which I still do not have access to in present day. If you are thinking that I am insane for even agreeing to meet with her knowing these facts and just how crazy she really can be, you're not wrong. The effects of trauma bonding are very real. Somehow, I was smart enough to think ahead in the possibility of worst-case scenarios. I was sitting at the theme park bench caught in a world of anxious thought. The parts of my heart and mind that wanted to be excited were overshadowed by the worry and fear that I felt based on how things had gone in the past. I waited for some time, and then she showed up. She was walking towards me, in a black dress. There was a man with a beard sitting a few benches away from where I was. I saw her walk up to him, and for a second I thought she had ambushed me with her new boyfriend. The man turned to look at her as she got closer, and then she suddenly turned away and looked in my direction. For a moment, I froze in fear and nervous anticipation. She started again in my direction. She sat down at the bench across from me. She had a strange smirk on her face, and the energy of the environment felt off for some reason. We exchanged a few words of small talk, and then the question came. "Can I see your phone, Joshua?" I didn't really know what to say because the question really caught me off guard. I just sat there quietly in the awkward silence. "Joshua, where is your phone?" "I don't have it, Alice." "What do you mean, you don't have it? How have you been texting and communicating with me if you didn't bring it with you?" I was trying to explain to her that I didn't have the phone she wanted. I knew that she wanted the phone I left behind that had all the new photos, conversations, and logins that had transpired after she stole my old phone, and I had to get a new one. Eventually, I explained to her the truth. She wasn't convinced, so I agreed that she could look at my phone with me as long as I was allowed to hold it in my own hands the whole time. She reluctantly agreed, but I could see the disappointment in her face. I do not know what her true plans were with the original phone, but I knew that if she found anything even slightly negative in her eyes, that she could easily walk away with it again and leave me stranded without a way to contact anyone. This event served as a negative undertone for the rest of the evening. After she was done looking through my phone and finally believed me that I didn't have anything on it, She convinced me to take her out in the theme park and purchase a dessert item for her. In the remainder of my visit in her state, she made me install some hanging baskets for the plants outside of her house as payment for her agreement to meet with me. I was never in her company for more than a few hours. I slept in cheap motels for the rest of the stay, and one of the nights I slept in the rental car because I wanted to save money. One of the nights that I spent time with her, we were sitting in the rental car talking. She let me touch her arm, but she was not being affectionate with me. She just had this cold, empty stare in her eyes. "Let me see your phone," she demanded once again. This time it seemed like she was angry and more irritated for some reason. I was hoping that if I complied with her request that she would be kinder towards me. I gave her my phone unlocked. She started writing a long text message to my sister, with whom she had a long argument with on social media a few weeks prior. I won't get into the details of that. She wanted this text message to look like it was coming directly from me. She said a bunch of horrible things about my sister. I didn't want to create any drama because it seemed like Alice was a ticking time bomb just waiting for something to activate her rage. On my final night in her hometown, she told me she wanted to return some of my items to me. I was hoping that she would give me back some of my designer clothing that she had taken from me, or maybe my laptop or my old cell phone. She did not. She gave me random things like some old socks and t-shirts that I had left at her house. Everything she gave back to me had little to no value. Because of this, I knew that she was still holding an extreme amount of resentment against me. I knew that she didn't really care about me. She didn't share kind of affection with me or words of kindness. The whole trip was about her wanting to control me, to use my phone for things that I was not comfortable with, and to try and trick me into wanting to be with her still. Her bag of tricks did not work anymore. On the drive home, I listened to sad music the entire drive as my world finally shattered. I realized that everything was a lie. The entire trip was ruined by the way she treated me. I decided that I was finally ready to move on. We still continued contact for a little while, although things in my mind had changed permanently. I was no longer going to let her play games with me. I needed something to take my mind off from everything, so I decided to download a dating app and look for a woman to hook up with. I don't enjoy hookups, but I wanted a rebound as a distraction from the pain and feelings of rejection. A woman named Carly messaged me, and we hit it off right away. We ended up meeting, and I got what I wanted. I felt kind of weird about it afterwards, so I sent some money to Carly on Venmo as a sort of token of my appreciation for her. I didn't have to pay her anything, but it made me feel powerful, and I used to send a lot of money to Alice, so it felt like payback of some kind. A few nights later, I got a call from Alice again. I had been drinking. It turns out that my Venmo account was still attached to my old email that Alice had control over. She told me that she was driving to go on a date, and asked me what I was doing. In my drunken, foolish state, I ignored her question and explained that I felt like things were dead between her and I. I admitted to her that how I felt about the way she treated me. Eventually, she interrupted me and said, "Joshua, who is Carly?" A chilling wave of realization was sent down my spine. I then remembered that she received emails on my old account any time I sent money on Venmo. I refused to answer any of her questions about Carly. She convinced me that I was acting up and that I needed to take a walk around my neighborhood to calm down. I was a little confused, but the fresh air did sound nice. We ended the call and I put on my house slippers. I walked out of my front door, and then, there she was. Alice was sitting underneath the light pole near my car. It felt like I was in a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Did she really drive this far to come see me again? Why would she come all the way here? "Joshua, we need to talk," she said quietly, with a fake innocent look on her face. "Alice, what are you doing here?" She convinced me that we needed to go in her car because it was too hot and she wanted to have a serious conversation. When we got in the car, she was talking in such a fake voice I could tell that it was forced. She started touching me and trying to kiss me, but I was resisting all of her actions just like she did to me when I was in her hometown. Something felt extremely wrong, but the alcohol was clouding my judgment. I still had my heart and mind made up about her and nothing was going to change that. Luckily, I had left my phone inside. "You need to message Carly and let her know that you are no longer interested. If you can do that in front of me, we can go get a hotel room together tonight." There was no way that she could convince me. I was drunk and stupid, but I wasn't that stupid. I tried to manage the situation the best ways that I could without getting my phone. Before I could do anything else, Alice said, "Let's go for a little drive." At this point I started getting nervous again. I was in the passenger side of her car. I didn't know what to say or do because I didn't have my phone or my wallet with me. She lied and said that we were going to go and get a hotel and figure out the rest later. I didn't know what to believe. The drive became scarier the further we got away from my house. She started saying crazy things and touching me again even after I asked her to stop. She started speeding when we got on the highway that was in the direction of her hometown. I don't know what her plan was exactly, but I was starting to get very scared. "Pull over and let me out of the car, Alice, or I'm going to jump out." I had my hand on the handle ready to open the car door even though she was driving over 90 miles per hour. "I swear, I'm going to do it, Alice. Pull over this car right now." "Are you sure this is what you want, Joshua?" We were in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of the desert. She finally agreed, and then said something like, "You're going to regret this," while laughing. When I got out of the car, I had escaped one danger and crossed over into another. I was in the middle of a desert, near a major highway, but there was barely anything else around. I was tired, emotionally exhausted, without any water. I was extremely thirsty. I walked for miles until I found a construction site that was active. I made friends with the workers there and told them about what had just happened to me. They agreed that I could hide from their supervisor in the break room until morning since I was not supposed to be there. I was glad to find that the break room had a fridge stocked with cold water. I drank a lot of it and took a nap. I was worried that Alice was going to turn around and break into my house now that she had an opportunity to do so. I was able to contact some family members to prevent this from happening. The next day, a family member came and picked me up to drive me back home. This was one of the scariest things that ever happened to me and serves as a warning. I hope that anyone reading this or hearing about this story is able to avoid the dangers of staying with the wrong person. Always remember to pay attention to red flags no matter what the cost is.